Greetings from Krishnakanta Handicap State Open University. On behalf of the entire Krishnakanta Handicap State Open University family, I, Fatima Ahmed, welcome you all to the introductory video of Basic of Disaster Risk Reduction and Management, prepared by Dr. Utpal Deka, Assistant Professor of Krishnakanta Handicap State Open University, who is the course coordinator. Disaster is an event, man-made or natural, sudden or progressive, causing widespread human, material and environmental losses. And such losses exceeds the ability of the affected area to cope using its own resources. There is no country that is immune of disaster, though vulnerability to disaster varies. So we cannot eliminate disaster, but we can minimize the vulnerability through our activities. Those activities can help us to minimize the risk associated with hazard. Basically, there are four common elements associated with disaster, that is, hazard, vulnerability, capacity, and people. On the other hand, disaster risk depend on hazard exposure and vulnerability. Disaster management indicates the effort to foster development by reducing the toll of disaster. There are two types of disaster management strategy. One is crisis management, that is post-disaster management strategy, and other is risk management, that is pre-management disaster strategy. Till recently, focus is on post-disaster management strategy, that is response, relief, rehabilitation and reconstruction. But now there is a paradigm change from crisis management to risk management by emphasizing the strategies like prevention, mitigation and preparedness. So presently more emphasis has given on mitigation and vulnerability reduction by linking the disaster management with development process. Disaster management is not a function of disaster management department alone, but all the departments must join in the venture involvement of all stakeholders, like the people, communities, regulatory bodies and institutions, voluntary and community-based organizations and international institutions and agencies, at every stage and in each process. The simple language present philosophy of disaster management strategy has been shifted to participatory management, that is top-down approach, incorporating social, economical, political and technical aspects where main objective is to preparedness and risk reduction. Also, information, education and communication are the vital significance of disaster preparedness. Indian subcontinent is among the world's most disaster-prone land and vulnerable to one or other hazards. Also, a high population density and geographical location increases our vulnerability to one or other hazard. So, to make our community disaster resilient, their adaptability, flexibility and learning capacity should enhance. And for that, there is a need of capacity building and awareness program in the field of disaster risk management, risk reduction and disaster management. This course has been developed with a view to introduce different aspects and strategies associated with disaster risk reduction and disaster management. It provides comprehensive knowledge to the learners in identifying hazard and preliminary idea to address the need for emergency and help to accumulate knowledge and competencies in the area of disaster risk reduction and disaster risk management. Moreover, the course enables the learners to explore the knowledge and skill required for working successfully with the group organization for the effective disaster management planning, which will enhance their employability. The main objective of the course is to firstly to impact the knowledge on aspects, strategies, principles of disaster risk reduction and disaster management. Secondly, to understand the interconnection between the different stakeholders and disaster risk reduction. Thirdly, to provide emergency preparedness to face a disaster. And lastly, to develop capacity and competency to work in the field of disaster risk reduction and disaster management. The expected learning outcomes of the course is such as it will enable the learners to contribute to disaster risk reduction, community resilient and sustainable communities. Secondly, the program will also help the learners to explore key concept methodologies and technologies used in disaster emergency management. Thirdly, it is highly expected that the learner will enrich with skill necessary to manage emergency situations and the individual organizations and community and policy level. It will also enable the learners to contribute the disaster management planning at individual organization and community level. The program will enable the learners to understand the hazard risk assessment survey. It will also help in undertaking higher level courses and research activities in the field of disaster risk reduction and disaster management. This course is a 12-week course. In the first week, in briefly, we have the concept of disaster and the basic of vulnerability, development and relation with the vulnerability, development and disaster, role of community in disaster management. We have disaster management and government interventions. We have the role of ICT in education and technology, and in the end, we have how AI used in mitigating disaster and the probable career management in the field of disaster management. This course will be a multidisciplinary course. The medium of instruction will be in English. The course duration is 3 months or 12 weeks. The total credits will be 4 credits. The eligibility of enrollment is the learners who have completed their 10+2 or graduate in any discipline. Learners who are opting for a skill enhancement course, that is SEC in the CBSE model, as well as NEP 2020. Lifelong learners who are interested to learn new things. This course will evaluate it in 3 stages. Firstly, we have assignment, we have practical assessment, and the end-term examination. Thank you.